Welcome to the Scoop World Order. It is Tuesday. The team is back. We are in pads. They have a big practice Thursday and a bigger scrimmage on Saturday. Getting some of the spring break out of the system today. The guys were banging each other today, which is good. It's all different now that the pads are on. You get to see who can actually really play football versus the guys who are just in shoulder pads. We have pro day tomorrow. We have breaking news on a Ohio State target who just committed to Michigan. And we also have news of a big, giant defensive tackle, my favorite kind of people, a giant, big, fat dude who's athletic and skilled, an Ohio kid who could be coming back to the Buckeyes. We're going to break his film down a little bit. So as always, we appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for being a part of this with us. Again, we love doing these shows live. We love interacting with you guys. So get those questions fired up. I'm going to bring in Nevada here in a second. But as always, thank you guys. BuckeyesCoop.com has been absolutely crazy, on fire. Our community is buzzing right now. As we count towards the spring game, which means we get to summer conditioning, which means we get to the season. So if you guys are the biggest Ohio State supporters in the land, you got to join BuckeyesCoop.com. We will see you on there. So we're going to get right into it with my good friend Nevadabuck. Nevada, how are you tonight?
Doing great. Shaking off the spring break cobwebs and getting back into the football swing of things. Big day today. Lots going on, and this is going to be a big week for sure.
Neil, what is up? Neil is first in the chat. The 411 dudes, that is what we are. I love when you say that. It's one of my favorite sayings. Yeah, I love, I remember the feeling as a player coming back from spring break and being, in pads. It does suck. There's no other way to put it. But for us, it's great because we don't have to actually practice and we just get to talk about practice. So that is way more better than actually having to practice. So, Ryan Day took the podium today. It was a close practice. Got some intel. I keep pounding the table for Carson Hinsman. I think he is a guy that is on the rise. I think he's going to be our day one center. Ryan Day was putting some air in his tires today, boy. And I think that he's a guy that, when Justin Fry told me that he was going to keep those guards in place, I was like, well, that's got to be Carson Hinsman's spot then, because he's got to be doing something right. He was the number one center in the class. He was kind of a parting farewell gift from Greg Studoir, who he'd committed to. Nevada, your thoughts on Carson Hinsman potentially being our starting center as a second-year guy, as a redshirt freshman, and what he can bring to the table?
I mean, I'm very excited about what he brings. The guys inside, the WAC are very excited about him. They've been talking about him for a while. They've been talking him up as a potential starter at center. I think the reason, one of the questions you and I had for a long time was, why Ohio State wasn't moving Matt Jones to center, and why were they leaving him at guard? And I think we really got our answer when we just seen how good Carson is. I mean, he's just a really, really good player. Does everything really well. Incredibly smart. Holds the point of attack well. Great punch, great feet. Plays low, plays hard. So I think having Ohio State having the ability to put a redshirt freshman in there at centers, enabling them to put that veteran guard, paired with Donnie Jackson on the other side, it's going to really help out the tackles. So I think he's a big surprise of the spring already, but to us, it's really not as big a surprise because they've been telling us this guy's a dude, and he's a dude in a room of dudes, and just glad to see at least one of the questions on the offensive line being answered already on practice 3.
Yeah, I love having two veteran guards who are rocks fortify the two guard spots with Donnie and Matt, because they can help out the tackles and they can both help out the center if it ends up being Carson. But when you have a good guard, this is something that doesn't get talked about ever because people never really experienced it. But when you're playing tackle and you're a new tackle, when you have a really good guard inside, it makes your life a lot easier in terms of switching twists, games, pass protection, even run blocking. Like, people don't understand how important it is to have a good guard. I had TJ down there. It's a great guard. When he left, I missed him just because, there's a certain cohesion and chemistry that comes, when you set up a double team block, and how quick's he going to leave on a zone play? Is he going to help you? There's little nuanced things to offensive line play that most people don't understand or they don't know about. And I try to, kind of educate a little bit. It's not just, like Madden where they just stick to each other like Velcro. It's literally you have to work together and you build a cohesion, a chemistry the same way that a quarterback and a receiver build a chemistry. So that's something that I think I'm excited about. Josh Fryer, again, is a fourth-year guy. He could play really well at left tackle. Again, I think he's a guy that's up for the challenge. He's a scrappy dude, tough kid. Indiana kid wrestler. So I like that. And again, they just got to hang in there. And, if you got, the young guy at right tackle, whoever it ends up being, you just got to help him out a little bit in the pass pro. I mean, you're going to have a young tackle starting somewhere. So that's just going to be the way of the world when you lose two guys early to the NFL draft. We also, the Kyle McCord and Devin Booker battle is raging on. Again, I don't think it's much of a battle. I think Kyle McCord is going to be our guy. Nevada, your thoughts on what you've heard so far through 3 practices on the quarterback battle?
Well, you just called him Devin Booker. You literally just called him Devin Booker.
Did I? Oh,
Yeah, you literally just called him.
Sorry, I must have been thinking I was going to the league. I was going to go watch I was going to go watch the association. Devin Brown, my bad. Well, I mean, he wears 33 now, like Larry Bird. So I mean, he's kind of doing the basketball thing.
Yeah, he's
my bad. Shout
out,
Devin Brown. My fault, Devin Booker.
Yeah, Devin Booker. Now. Yeah, so Devin Booker and Kyle McCord are having a good battle. Obviously, what I think is interesting about what they're doing with this spring football that obviously they've never done before, this is kind of unprecedented, is how they're getting Heartline involved in kind of the scripting. And, we've talked about how Heartline is going to be calling the plays, and that's happening. That's been a decision made on high. Brian Heartline is going to be calling the plays, come the fall. But not only going to have Heartline calling the plays and the scrimmage that's coming up and kind of getting his feet wet doing that, kind of getting to rhythm, they're letting Brian start to design the kind of the scripts for the practices as they're going along, the practice scripts. So Brian's kind of getting a chance to build this offense from the ground up. And I find that to be really, really interesting. And so, they're asking the quarterbacks to do little, different things. And one of the things they're asking them to do is to extend plays. They're asking them to extend plays with their legs and, keep their head up. And, when they have a chance to break contain, take those yards, go ahead and do that. And that's different than the last couple of years. So I think the OSU offense is going to feel very different than it's been in the past. And look, the OSU offense has been so prolific and so successful that, sometimes different is a little scary. But I think it's going to be fun to see, how the offense evolves with Brian Heartline, at the helm. But it's going to his impact is already going to be felt, and it's already being felt right now in practice number 3. So you don't have to wait for the fall to see that. So I think the quarterbacks are being asked to do different things right now. There's really, really no separation between the two. Kyle McCord is clearly the odds-on favorite to be the starter when it gets going. But there's very, very little difference between the two. And Brian Hartline's ultimately going to be a guy who's going to have a big impact on who gets selected to be the starting quarterback. So that's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Something that was a really good question asked to Rhino is about how is the play calling going during practice right now, when you've only got a 20-hour rule and you have a 2-hour practice. You try to be as efficient as possible, so you script out the plays where the coaches literally write out the plays that they want to call, the night before, the day before, whatever. Build a practice script, edit it a little bit, and then you kind of work it so that if you have a certain run play, maybe if there's a certain coverage you want Jim Knowles to give you can do that, and then vice versa. If you're running like some sort of tight zone and you say, hey, I want to see this versus, an odd front or, this blitz or whatever, just to see if the offensive line can get it. Then you'll reverse it and you'll say, hey, what do you want us to run for your defense that you want to see? So there's a little bit more of a concert going on during practice. Now, when it gets to Saturday and they move the field, it's live, call it as you go. So it's literally Jim Knowles calling plays against Brian Heartline, which is fun because that's when, you're moving the field. So it's not scripted. It's not, like a stationary, because normally in a normal practice, if you're just in a drill or you're just in a team period, you'll be on like, say the 35-yard line going the long way of the field. And you'll have like 5 plays. You'll have a left hash play, a left middle play, a middle play, right middle, and right hash. And you'll have 5 scripted plays that you run. And, when you get to a scrimmage and you're moving the field, like you don't know where you're going to be calling the plays from, because you might get a 70-yard, pass and you get tackled on the 5-yard line. And then you got to call a short red zone play. So that'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. Ideally, I would imagine that Ryan Day wants to go over to the stadium at some point and have Brian actually be up in the press box. That was something that, when we were with Tress, we'd always do that the scrimmages, like if whoever was upstairs, usually it was Jim Bowman was our coordinator and Jim Haycock. They would be up in opposite booths, calling plays against each other. Cause then you really get the kind of the feel of the coordination of the sideline, which is important, especially when you've got a guy who's never done it before, because that's the big question. Is Brian going to be down on the field? Is he going to be up? I mean, I think with Keenan Bailey at tight ends, Keenan can, help coach the wide receivers, keep Corey Dennis down on the ground, put Brian up in the booth. But that remains to be seen with what they're going to be doing. I know Justin Fryle, he's been down on the field. You usually keep your O-line coach down on the field. But if I'm an offensive coordinator, man, I want to be up in that booth because you can see the field, you can take notes. I just think it's so much more advantageous. Obviously, Ryan's called the plays from the field, which is fine, but I think the optimal spot is kind of being up in the sky in a controlled setting where you can, again, you have the advantage of seeing every single play 3 times. You can see it live, you see it on the Jumbotron, and then there's usually a TV on the side that has ESPN on, so you can literally take notes and really see what happened, and then you're not relying on somebody trying to convey it to you live and in person. Nevada defensively, our boy Sonny Styles has moved to number 6. He looks fantastic. Who are some guys, as we're in the pads now, these guys are banging each other. Who are some guys you think that are going to rise stock-wise as the physicality gets ramped up?
Well, I mean, I think I think probably one of the biggest surprises and probably the most pleasant surprise to me of the spring so far has been the play of the cornerbacks. And, we knew Davison was going to be a dog. We knew Denzel Burke was going to be a dog. But Jordan Hancock's been playing really, really well. Really, really well. Looking good out there. And, so good that, the whole idea of this 3 safety defense, whether we want to call it nickel with 3 safeties and 2 corners or nickel with 3 corners and 2 safeties, Jordan Hancock is going to be in the mix for playing time. And they're going to find a way to get him on the field as much as they can. He came in highly, highly touted, highly, highly regarded. And finally, this spring, he is living up to all the hype. He's playing as well as could have ever been hoped, and really been a guy that's been on everybody's lips. You talk to the players inside and you ask them, who's been really shining out on the defense, and he's one of the first names that always gets mentioned, which is always a huge tell when you're trying to figure out these things. So Jordan Hancock, one of my players of the spring, and the entire cornerback group, one of the early risers in spring football, and certainly a pleasant and welcome surprise for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that it was another thing that I think we're going to see more of is a third corner playing nickel, which is going to be something that'll help us in the spread. We're not going to see as many base run teams as we did last year. So, as we get into some of these pass happy teams, I think that you put in all 3 corners and let them stick to these receivers and do as best we can to keep the man coverage at a high level. Got a super chat. Again, I appreciate these super chats. These are huge for us. D. Sonny, this is a fantastic question. When a head coach is not calling plays, what are some of their main focuses during the game? So I'll take this one just because I've lived it. When I worked for Jim Tressel and Urban, obviously I was in the booth, I was on the headset. The head coach is really focused on kind of managing the game, which that sounds like kind of a generic thing, but managing, both sides of the ball, managing, do we need a timeout? Managing like kind of the emotions of the team. He'd always kind of, he's the only guy on the headset that can be on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. That's something that I don't think people realize is that, when there's a coach, like Urban had his, double muff headset on, he could click back and forth between the offense and defense. Like when the offense is on the headset, we're only talking to the offensive coaches, and there's a 2-channel thing, and the defense is only talking to the defensive coaches. So the head coach is actually flipping back and forth between the two, and he'd tell the defense, hey, get ready, we're gonna go for it on 4th down here. Even if it's like 2nd and 8, he's like, hey, I'm gonna give Tom Herman 2 downs to get this. So get the defense ready to go, because if we don't get it, you guys are up, and you guys are going to be in poor field position, because you're going to be, maybe going for our own side of the field, or he manages, the special teams. Hey, should we fake it? Hey, get ready, we're going to fake this. There's all kinds of little things. He's got to work the officials because, usually the head coach is the only guy that's technically allowed to speak to the officials. Obviously, you see guys on the sidelines screaming, but Urban would be the guy generally managing the officials. But no, it's mostly just managing kind of the back and forth and the feel of things between the sides. Because again, that's a big thing. You need the defense to kind of know what the offense is thinking, and the offense to know what the defense is thinking. But we don't really talk to each other during the game. We might be in the booth next to each other, but if we all have headsets on, you don't even know that they're there. So it's really interesting, and I think it's something that will help Ryan Day now that he's going to lose potentially the play calling responsibility. Because again, I tell people, it's like if you're running a company and you have a CFO and a COO, and you try to make one guy do both roles, like it's way better if you can get a really good CFO and a really good COO than it is to just have one guy try to balance two jobs. But that's basically it. I think that it sounds simple and mundane, but when you're in the chaos of a college football game, it's not. You're dealing with kids that get injured. How do we readjust the depth chart? Who has to go in? How does it adjust our game plan? Especially if you lose like a guy who's a star or he's a skill guy that's a big part of the game plan. What do you do? So, but yeah, it's a big responsibility. That's a fantastic question. Nevada, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, yeah, no, I think just, you've got things, whether you're getting medical reports or information about guys going in, or like you said, the mood of the team, or, clock management has been one of my biggest concerns and criticisms of Ryan Day since he got there. And as you mentioned, that's something you can pay a little bit more attention to when you're not just having to be caught up in the minutia of calling the next play and calling the next series for the offense. So I think a lot of things are going to get better for Ryan when he can kind of take a little bit more of a global role. And again, make no mistake, Ryan will have spent the time in the run up working through the game plan with Brian. So Brian's going to know exactly what Ryan wants him to call, expects him to call, likes him to call. And so the offense is still going to have his print all over it. But I think it's going to it's going to enable him to be more of a globalist, and I think that's only positive for Ohio State and only positive for Ryan Day.
Yeah, and like you said, the injury report thing, can a guy go, like going back and forth between the staff? Again, and the big thing is that clock management has been terrible, during the Ryan Day era, in my opinion. There's sometimes I shake my head at some of the things we do, and I think that if he can alleviate running the entire offense and he can actually be a head coach, I think he can get better at that. But there's been some moments where I've just been like, I was like, oh, literally, like, have you ever even played Madden before where you don't, why are we not calling timeout? Why are we calling timeout? Why did we waste a timeout? We've wasted a lot of timeouts over the years. Again, the first half ones aren't a big deal because those don't carry over to the second half, but it's just, I think that Ryan can get much better at game management as we go along.
Well, there was a moment last year where Ryan would have said to the center, he would have said, "Hey, guy, we're running this fake punt. Be sure you snap it to the right guy." And like that might have made all the difference in the Michigan game or something like that, because that was not said to the center, and the center snapped it to the wrong guy, and there you have it.
Yeah, like I mean, that was one of those ones where the fake was like a check with the sideline. The center didn't get the call, and we snapped it to the punter when it was the most open fake in the history of football. And Drew Harbaugh, that would have been a 40-yard, gain. I mean, because the only guy back was the punter. There's nobody there. It was the most perfect. And again, like that's on the coach. I mean, that's on the special teams coach. When you don't execute something like that, and it happens time and time again, and you have got too many men on the field, it's, I don't know, like that was stunning to me.
Give that guy a raise, man. Give that guy
raise
a raise.
Roof.
That's what you need to
raise the roof.
Give him a raise.
That's right.
Pay him more money. That's right. He deserves a raise.
Hey man, as long as my boy James ain't allowed to coach on the field, we're good. Quick question. All right, we're gonna go Jordan Marshall now because this is blowing up our chat. Top 100 running back, Cincinnati Moeller commits to Michigan. Nevada, your reaction on losing Jordan Marshall?
Okay, first of all, not shocked. Cincinnati. The people close to him, big time Michigan guys. Cincinnati's always kind of been that way. I always consider guys from Cincinnati, guys from Toledo, guys from Cleveland, kind of on the borders. For whatever reason, there's always guys that want to do their own thing. So am I dismayed? Do I have the Do I have a gun pointed at my temple right now, ready to kill myself because we lost a kid from Cincinnati going to Michigan? No, not not bummed. Having said all that, it is kind of an indictment of Tony Alford again, who I've
Jesus
been saying
Christ.
for a while. I'm like, at some point, people have got to wake up and see where the real issues are. I know we like to try to focus our fire on particular guys, and I'll be like, wow, man, I don't really understand why this guy's taking all this fire and other guys just skate on through life and can kind of do this. But at some point, he's got to be held accountable. I love his offensive running back room right now. It's great. It's terrific. He had a great year that one year when he was able to bring in Pryor and Henderson, but man, our recruiting at running back has been absolutely sketchy. And since we can't blame Coach Stud, we got to blame somebody. So, I mean, come on, Tony, you got to start. You got to do better than this. And this will be another one where I'm not lined up on the ledge. I understand that these circumstances. There are a lot of people around this kid that were very, very close with Michigan. I get it, but still, Tony, come on, you got to be better.
Yeah, I'm stunned by this one because this is an Ohio kid. This is not an NIL kid. This is a Michigan just whooped you. And again, I always look at kind of what's coming back because when you're a running back or a quarterback, the depth chart is kind of paramount to make sure that you can get on the field early, hopefully be 3 and out, get to the league, like a lot of this. And our depth chart after this year is a barren wasteland potentially. Because Trey's going to be gone, mine's going to be gone. We might have a guy transfer out. Who knows? So I mean, for Ohio State, that room is about as questionable as you can get because we literally didn't even get a running back last year. We got we got a walk on from Maslin, and that was it. So I would think this would be the killing fields for a recruit. Like I would say you could probably get the top 2 running backs in the country and say, hey, if you're a big time impact freshman, come to Ohio State because you're going to be standing right next to Kyle McCord or Devin Brown / Booker. Next year because, we're going to lose everybody. Like we're going to lose 2, 3, 4 guys from that room. Xavier obviously is going to go. He's played a little bit of tailback for us, but yeah, I was shocked. I woke up, I took a little brief nap before we get him on the podcast. I was just like, man, I can't believe that we lost that kid from our backyard. Cause this isn't Mark Fletcher getting millions of dollars from Miami. This is a kid from Cincinnati who didn't get a dime from Michigan. And he just said, you know what? I want to go be a Wolverine. And again, like in the Urban Meyer era, we didn't, in the beginning, we lost Kyle Kalis. But after that, man, there were not many kids that were Ohio State kids that were priority kids that went to Michigan. I don't know if there are any. So, that's somewhat alarming. I love Troy Brady-Settle, Sean Crable, and Prescott Burgess, who were both in my class, left Ohio, and how did that turn out for them? That's a great point because, again, those guys, they took off, and those are 2 guys that I was kind of buddies with in recruiting, and they both went to Michigan, and they both lost every time we played them. So it was very sweet to beat those 2 guys because I was on my official visit with Prescott. I played in a couple All-Star games with Sean. And when they took L's every time we saw them, it was fantastic. And again, the thing I always tell kids, if you're down to Ohio State and Michigan, I just tell kids, look, when you're done playing football, after 10 years in the NFL, or what are your dream scenarios? Where do you want to live? Do you want to live in Ohio or do you want to live in Michigan? And if the answer is, well, I want to come back to Cincinnati or Cleveland or whatever, go to Ohio State. I'm telling you, it works out better. Like people, they're dying to help you if you're an Ohio State Buckeye. If you're a Michigan guy and you're the guy that tells Ohio State essentially to F off, then go live in Michigan. And again, that's not, there's guys, plenty of guys come back here, with Michigan degrees and they do okay and whatever. But if you're an Ohio State guy and you live in Ohio, man, it's a good life. I promise you. So yeah, I was stunned by that. But again, like you gotta start, turning the heat up a little bit. And I mean, I know that Ryan was not happy when we lost Fletcher, and Fletcher was supposed to be our plan B guy. Like we're supposed to get Richard Young, one of these ultra backs, Cedric Baxter. I mean, these guys were like, the Leonard Fournette level guys. And then Mark Fletcher is supposed to be like the nice little plan B guy. And then we didn't get any of them. So, this is not a great start for the running back recruiting. So we are going to go into my favorite position, the big fat defensive tackle. We have a kid from Maryland, Winton Woods High School, and his name is Tank. It says here he's 287. There's no way he's 287 right now. This kid has been eating good. Uh, Tank Booker is a kid. Was at practice today. He's a nose guard. He's in the portal. A couple years of eligibility. Had 2 sacks last year, which for a nose guard is actually pretty decent. Active dude. Out of position of need. Nevada, how excited are you to add another big fat guy to our defensive tackle room?
Well, at least now we know where you got the name Booker. You know, I'm saying this is where it came from. You know, I'm saying that it wasn't Devin Booker, it was Anthony Booker. That's where it was. But no,
Oh, that you're right.
that's where it came from. But
Oh.
no, I would, you know, I'd never like to say anything's a done deal whenever you're talking about portal or recruiting, but I think this is as close to a done deal as you can. And I like the kid. This is a kid that can help Ohio State now. You know, as for all the time that we spend talking about the offensive line, I'm much more concerned about the interior defensive line and, you know, having depth and having guys and impact guys that you can rotate through there that are not just bodies, that are not just guys that are going to go out there and just, you know, take 20, 30, 40 plays and not do anything, but actually make an impact and help you win a national championship. Because make no mistake, 2023 is a national championship year for Ohio State, and they need guys that can help them right now. And a guy like Anthony Booker can help them right now. And Tank he'd be a nice pair there with Ty Hamilton. Be guys that can help him on the nose. We don't have a lot of guys like him, and I think he'd be a good get. And right now for Ohio State, it'd be a great get for 2023 and beyond.
Is Tank a good nickname or no?
Love it. Tank is
Love it.
anybody named Tank is good. That's a good nickname.
So here he is at Winton Woods again. You know, we've got this is just, I mean, this is like an 11-minute highlight, but he's a big, massive dude. This guard did not get his hands inside and he got rolled back. But I like it. You know, I love, you know, the thing that's cool about being at Ohio State in the transfer portal era is there's some of these kids that dreamed of being Ohio State Buckeyes. We don't offer them. We missed on them. And then, you know, in a few years, they can come back and kind of fulfill their dream and become a Buckeye, which is, you know, this is what I believe is going to happen with this kid. Again, you can't get enough inside rotational guys that can give you 25 snaps as a big D tackle. I love these kind of guys. The plugs. He's a big, heavy dude. He's gained weight at Maryland. He's much heavier than he is on this tape. But you know, I think with Tyleek's, you know, stamina issues, with Mike Hall's injury issues, you know, we're kind of surprisingly thin at defensive tackle. I mean, we're down to Hero Canoe, who didn't play at all last year as a redshirt freshman. And I think that, you know, if you can add depth, these big bodies, like you just got to accumulate them. It's a long season. Guys get hurt. You know, so, you know, we're thinner at this position than I'd like. I think that we've, you know, been a little bit too defensive end heavy when it comes to recruiting. We don't take enough pure nose guards because frankly they're hard to find. There's not a lot of guys that are these big mooses. And again, he went to Maryland first. And you know, and here you see how active he is. Like I think if he's getting in the backfield every play, and there's some guys that are just like that. They're just twitched up. They have a way to kind of get through the gaps, and he's a guy that can do that. You know, he's a big bull rush guy. I mean, this is about his 8th bull rush so far in the 3 minutes of film we've been watching. So I like it. And like I said, you know, when you got to get down to the nitty gritty and beat Michigan, these are the kind of guys you need. You need the guys that can push their guards back, stop their zone scheme, you know, get a good 20, 25, 30 physical plays in and just grind a little bit. So yeah, we're just watching this tape. Like I said, I like to kind of see what these guys look like in high school. We watch a lot of the high school tape, especially for a guy like Carson Hinsman, some of these young guys, because they don't really have much film other than garbage time at the end of Ohio State games. And, you know, I've been in those situations where you get in at the end of the game and, you know, a lot of times it's not great film. You're watching the bad players on one team versus the backups on Ohio State. So I don't know really what you can take out of it. You kind of want to see what the coaches saw at their peak when you watch their high school tape. So that's always interesting. What else we got? We have some good questions going tonight. Get your questions in here, guys, because I got a ton. Yeah, there's like a little battle going on. It's kind of funny. Nevada, as we get into spring ball, we've got about 2.5 weeks left of it. What do you want to see out of the offense and the defense? And talk a little bit about kind of, because we'll get some inside reports. You know, what what do you take from spring ball when you say that the defense had a great day, the offense had a great day, whatever? Like, is there a point in time where you've gotten reports and you're like, this is a little too one-sided towards the offense or a little too one-sided towards the defense? Because obviously, if the defense has a good day, that means the offense stunk. Or if the offense has a good day, that means the defense stunk. What do you kind of glean from that as the spring goes on?
Well, I mean, I think you always got to always look at the context clues on that. If you hear about running backs breaking off big runs, was it against the second and third team, or was it one on one best on best type of action? So I think really it's who was it up against and what was the situation when something good happened. But what I generally look for is I generally listen for names. I try to look for whose name am I getting to mention the most from as many different sources as possible. And when you hear that, generally that's the guy that you can kind of focus on, and you can kind of tell who's doing well or who's showing out early on in these springs, or as later on as spring football kind of progresses. And that's how you get to names like Carson Hinsman or Sonny Styles or Kai Stokes or Jordan Hancock or whomever. It's really a matter of who's mentioned, and especially who the players think is doing well. And I think for the quarterback battle, that's really what I'm going to be looking at. The quarterback battle is going to be probably the best quarterback battle we've had at Ohio State in a while. I mean, if you think back, in years gone by, these decisions have been pretty much made for us almost every year before the spring football even started. This is one when we're having a real, true, honest, open competition. So I think I like the fact that both guys bring different things. I like the fact that Devin Brown is a little better runner, and I like the fact that Cal McCord has got such a live arm and such chemistry with Marvin Harrison. So I'm going to be looking to see whose names are flashing up, what situations are flashing up in, and we'll be reporting. We'll know. We'll know, and we'll be telling you. You won't have to. You won't get it. I guarantee you will not get it from a press conference mention, but you'll get it in a nugget or something that we're getting out here. We'll tell you. We'll give you the real scoop in terms of who's doing it and who's doing what and who's just being propped up for coach speak.
Yeah, the coach speed is hot and heavy, man, at these conferences. You kind of glaze over when you listen to some of the answers. But yeah, I totally agree. I think that it's really important to diagnose who's going against who when guys are going off. Again, you see it in the spring game every year when you see a walk on or you see some receiver go crazy and he's going against a guy that's never going to play at any level. Because all the starters are pulled early in the spring game. I do wish that they'd make the quarterbacks live for scrimmages. I know. Obviously, there's always the issue of injury, but I mean, we used to do it back in the day with trust, and we never lost a quarterback because of injury. But I think it does add a little bit of stress and anxiety to the offensive line, knowing that hey, if you miss your block, your quarterback's going to get hit. And I think frankly, quarterbacks need to be hit a little bit just to see how they react to getting hit. Like I just think that's a big part of football because some of these guys they get out there and they never get hit, and all of a sudden they get hit a couple times in a game, and they're not the same guy. They wilt. So it's interesting to see who the true tough guy warriors are versus the guys that are kind of the fakes. So that's always interesting to me. Again, for me, I'm all about the offensive line. The tackle situation, see how it works out. I think that our tackles are good enough to win a national title. I don't think they're as good as Paris and Dewan, but they don't have to be. I mean, we won with Darrell Baldwin, Jacoby Bourne. Two guys that weren't NFL guys. And I think we've got some really good, some good scheme. Again, I think our skill erases any sort of deficiency at offensive line just because, these guys are going to get open fast. Like guys like Emeka Marvin, if you want to bring the house on our quarterback, and leave those guys singled up, you're going to get killed. So, again, and there's ways to, and this is something I would plead with Brian Hartline to do, to help the tackles in pass protection. Make it easy on them. There's ways to make it easy. There's ways to make it hard. If you want to sit back and empty and be 5 wide or 4 wide with a running back and leave those guys with no chips and not move the pocket, it's really hard. If you want to mix your protections up and give these guys a chance to get their feet wet early in the season, it makes it really easy. I knew as a tackle there are certain play calls that were pass protections that were just an absolute piece of cake because it's just if you slide away or slide certain directions, if you have a tight end on your shoulder, if you have a back coming your way, makes it a lot easier than just being in straight drop back. And I blame this isn't like a Ryan Day or Brent Harlan thing. I see this in the NFL all the time where I'll see some tackle that's overwhelmed by a really good pass rusher and they just put him out on an island and he gets waxed. And I'll never understand why they do that to guys that clearly have matchup issues. You know, if you can double team a Devontae Adams or a really good wide receiver, you should probably, at least give some help on a really good pass rusher. Yeah, but I like Tank. I mean, he's an active kid. I kind of actually get excited when we get these kids that kind of portal and they get to come home and kind of live their childhood dream of playing at Ohio State. Obviously, he was a teammate of Mayan Williams, so that'll be kind of cool. But yeah, I think this could be a good rotational guy. I think that it's interesting. Like Vic Cutler, is kind of the second team center right now, still learning the offense. So we'll see what kind of impact he can make going forward. But for a nose guard, it's not hard to learn the defense. I mean, you could learn that probably in one day, just because it's not super complicated. It's just basically go forward and kill somebody. When you're playing offensive line, there's a million things you have to learn. So it'll be interesting to see how much Tank gets in the rotation come June and August, because he's going to be behind the eight ball, missing spring ball. But this guy's played in college games, played against us last year when he was at Maryland. So I think he'll be a nice additional rotational piece as long as he comes with a good attitude and he works hard. This is a great question. Or not a question, it's a statement. Dave, Nevada, I'm going to have you respond to this. OSU loves lateral blocking, which is zone blocking. We don't knock anybody back off the ball under Ryan Day. What is your response to that, Nevada?
Well, look, we got to remember we're a pass first team. I mean, whether we like it or not, we're a pass first team, and pass first involves a lot of pass protection, and that's what we practice a lot because we throw it a lot. And I think you are what you practice, and you are what you kind of do. And I have we lost a little bit of that toughness edge by being a pass first team and by being a team that likes to throw the ball as much as we do. We have. I mean, it's and again, that's not a let's line up on the ledge and everybody let's panic and we can't win a national championship because guys, we came within a field goal of winning the national championship last year. So we're right there. We're right on the edge. I think Dave stepping back from the play calling is going to. It's nice now. Having said that, who do we get to do the play calling? Is it a running back guy? Is it a tough guy? Nah, it's Brian Hartline's a wide receiver. So you're probably going to see more. You're probably going to see more of that type of action. But I think Ohio State's kind of figuring out what they need to do. Ohio State's picked up on something. I put it in a nugget. They put on some things about slanting the offensive line and getting their help. They had seen in the Georgia game that Jalen Carter. Look, as big as lazy as people may think he is, and he didn't finish his pro day drill set because he was overweight. He was still beating up our guards pretty good against Georgia. And when we slanted, towards him and gave him some help, we were very effective. And when we went away from him, we were less effective. So I think Ohio State's picked up some things in there about what they need to do to help those interior linemen, and I think it'll pay big dividends for them. But hey, guys, we're a passing team. We're going to get premier quarterbacks, we're going to get premier wide receivers, and occasionally we're going to lose a good running back like we did today. So it's kind of baked in the cake. Kind of is what it is.
Totally agree. PJ Studio, great question. Front runner at right tackle Zen right now, who's flashing on the O line. I mean, Carson Hinsman's a guy that I keep hearing. I know obviously that's pretty obvious just because he literally is the starting center at this point. He's got to hold off Jacob James in camp, but Josh Fryer is a guy that I talked to people on the team that are really good, and they say he's a tough kid. His knee feels better. Tore his ACL versus Michigan, a year and a half ago. Played all last year on it, so he was kind of a quick healer, but now even stronger, quicker, athletic. Again, he's not going to be as pretty as Paris, but he's a big, tough athlete, and so I think Josh has a real opportunity to be really good. I mean, he's a guy that. Again, he has underrated athleticism. He's a wrestler that can dunk a basketball too. So I really like his ability and I like his toughness. And he's a guy that I keep hearing from good players is a really good player. So, I don't think it's an accident that Justin Fry decided to stick him out at left tackle. Another super chat. Appreciate you, D. Sunny. Nevada, if you're around back then, do you have any Terry Glenn stories? How was he as a walk-on, and how great was he? Do you, Nevada?
Well, I mean, Terry Glenn, and Terry Glenn's not your traditional walk on. I mean, when we think of walk on, I think people think of like Rudy Rudiger or something like that, and Terry certainly wasn't that type of a situation. I mean, Terry was a guy that they wanted. That there were some issues in terms of getting him there, and they finally got him to Ohio State. And one of my favorite Terry Glenn stories was when he first started. He first goes out there to practice, and the coaches are out there, and they didn't have jerseys for him back then. So he's wearing I think he was wearing like 91 or 92 or something like that. And he's going out there and he's like just tearing guys up. He's just like tearing past guys or something. And finally, the defensive coach goes over there and he's like, "Who's the guy there?" And they said, "Oh, that's Terry Glenn." He's like, "Well, get that guy." So they made one of the other players take off their jersey and give it to him so that they know where he was all the time, every time he was on the field during practice. And that's always cracked me up with this guy. I have this picture of this other kid, poor kid, comes to practice, doesn't have this jersey. His jersey was given to Terry Glenn because Terry Glenn was so effective tearing up that Buckeye defense that day. But no, he was one of my favorites. That catch and run against Notre Dame in the Horseshoe might have been the loudest moment that I've ever heard. I mean, right up there with Jenkins against Penn State and the '06 game, the entire game. But one of my favorite players. Certainly a special guy, and I miss Terry. I miss having him around, and truly just an awesome Buckeye, awesome player, awesome NFL kid as well. So great player. Like, it's great to have memories. Great talking about him again.
It was tragic. I remember when he died. It was after a Sunday night game. Got in a car wreck, and I reached out to his kid. And his kid, unfortunately, has passed away in the last few years. But I remember I took his kid to practice. It was like I want to say it was like the Friday or it might have been Thanksgiving morning that I took him to practice. It was like around that time. And I called up Urban. I said, "Hey, do you mind if I bring Terry Glenn Jr. to practice just to kind of get him, scoop him up, meet some of the players and stuff?" And I took him over with Zach. Zach was coaching the receivers, and he got to talk to Terry McLaurin. And Terry McLaurin's like, the reason I wear 83 is because of your dad. And it was unbelievable how nice those kids were and how good they were to Terry Glenn Jr. He was wearing this jacket that his dad had gotten when they played in the Super Bowl versus the Packers. It was like this big leather jacket. It was kind of extremely retro looking, but it was cool. Urban was great with him. Got a good photo with him and Urban, but it was sad that his kid passed away a few years later. He was a really nice kid. Went to Dublin Kaufman. Was kind of a kid that wanted to, he wanted to follow in his dad's footsteps. Didn't end up playing football at Ohio State, but he was a really good kid. And his dad was obviously an incredible player, our only Biletnikoff winner. Obviously, a guy that everyone remembers from the '95 offense that was, as dynamic as we've ever had, especially for back in that era. So it was really sad when both of them succumbed. Yeah, I think that switch gears. Justin Fry's influence on the running game is going to be, I think it's going to be interesting. Because when Kevin Wilson got here, I knew that we were going to be a stretch team. That's what he did at Oklahoma with Adrian Peterson. That's what he did at Indiana, and he was fantastic with us. So it'll be interesting to see how much it changes with Justin Fry. I don't think we're going to ever be a power team again. I just don't think it fits with what we like to do on offense. But it'll be interesting to see two things. Do we actually become more of a power team, which I don't think we will, and do we run more read option with our quarterback pulling the ball? Which again, I think that there's a part of me that believes that Ryan Day, once a quarterback gets to a certain level, like with CJ Stroud or Justin Fields, he does not want him to ever get hit. So he treats them like they're made of porcelain. So he doesn't call plays where a quarterback can potentially pull the ball and run it. He'll carry out the fakes, but he never actually runs it, because you can tell when the defensive end gives a read where CJ should have pulled it and he still hands it off, that there wasn't a designed read on the play. It was just a handoff of the fake. So I think that it'll be interesting to see if it gets down to the nitty gritty, if we run the quarterbacks a little bit more. Because again, I think that that's the most overpowered thing in football right now is a quarterback that can scramble and run. I mean, you see Pat Mahomes do it. You see Josh Allen do it. And I think it's just so hard to defend, and it's something that gives defenses headaches. And it's just, it's that extra layer of the offense that, frankly, we've lacked. And, it was activated versus Georgia. And, we scored a lot of points on the best defense in the country. And we had, two of the best defensive minds in the country in Kirby Smart and Will Muschamp completely flabbergasted. And again, we could have put the nail in their coffin late, but, we weren't able to get 10 yards on our last 3 plays. So, Nevada, how much of an impact do you think Justin Frye will have on the offense now that Kevin Wilson has moved on?
Well, he's definitely going to be a bigger voice. You got to remember, Kevin Wilson was a huge voice in that room. And, you can't have too many people kind of shouting at each other when you have, from being there. So I think, Justin Frye's impact we'll know this year much more so than any other time, what his impact's going to be. And, to your point about running the quarterback, I just saw Daniel Jones got 40 million a year or whatever it was for the Giants. And
Mm-hmm.
it ain't because he's just like the greatest passer in the world. You know what I'm saying? It's because Daniel Jones is willing to take off and stumble for 8 when the defense gives it to him. And
Yeah.
no, I agree with you. I think we saw a little bit against Georgia, but even the big play at the end of the game where Justin took off and darn near housed it and got us into field goal range. It wasn't a called run; it was a broken play. Everybody was covered, and Justin kind of tucked it, and all of a sudden he just ran and there was all this green grass in front of him. But I sure hope that impact is felt on the offense. And you're starting to hear a little bit about that when they start talking about when they use code words like extend plays. That's really for, hey guys, we want you to keep your head up and think about running, think about running with the ball, think about moving down the field. And I think Ryan has seen the light on that, and hopefully Justin Frye's influence helps him see a little bit more of the light.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, again, this year the schedule is much more difficult. The offense could be just as explosive, but last year's offense was, from a talent perspective, about as good as I've seen. When you see our 2 tackles, our center, obviously CJ could potentially he's probably the top 2 pick in the draft at this point. And then our wide receiver skill was outstanding. Obviously there's going to be a drop off quarterback. How severe it is depends on Kyle McCord. But the last few guys, like when we lost Haskins and we got Justin Fields, we thought there'd be a drop off. When we lost Fields, we got CJ, we thought there'd be a drop off. And there really hasn't been a huge drop off statistically. But that's on Kyle McCord and the offense to maintain that level of excellence that we've seen over the last few years. So we're going to, I think we're going to wrap this thing. But yeah, I got some Carson Hinzman on just for some of you guys that aren't as familiar with his highlight tape. I mean, he's a tough kid, a Wisconsin kid, and Wisconsin kids don't generally come to Ohio State. I'm just telling you. So when we pulled him, I was shocked because if you're a great offensive lineman and you're from the state of Wisconsin, there's like a 99.9% chance you're going to Wisconsin. But he broke the mold and he came to Ohio State. So I always kind of liked him for that because that was ballsy to say the least. Because like, again, we don't even recruit the state of Wisconsin. I can't remember the last kid from Wisconsin that's been on a roster because they all become Badgers. So that was a great pull by Greg Studoir to get this kid committed. Nevada, any final thoughts as we wrap this thing up?
No, just really excited about the cornerbacks, man. I'm telling you, really excited about that. That's been, we've talked ad nauseum about how the cornerbacks last year had 0 interceptions in a season, which right up there with the quarterback not having a rushing touchdown in 2 years was, filed under the impossible stats category. But I'm telling you, it's not going to be that way this year. You're gonna see interceptions from the corners. You're going to see what it's like to have elite corners, and you're going to see 2 and 3 cornerbacks on the field at all times. So, very, very excited about that. Seat change for the OSU defense in 2023 is the play of the cornerbacks. So watch out for that.
Yeah, we've had some, like, of all the strange things, no rushing touchdowns, no interceptions, no running backs committed, no linebackers committed. Those are 4 things I didn't think I'd ever see at Ohio State, but we've seen them in the last year or so. Really strange. Which one is the strangest to you, Nevada? And then I'll let you go.
No rushing touchdowns out of the quarterback for 2 years in a row is just an impossible stat. That can never. I mean, that it's literally 0. It ranks 0 out of 130 teams. We're last, 130th. Let's hope we never see that again.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's just pure softness. But I'm going to wrap this thing up. As always, thank you guys. We appreciate you guys. This is a very lively chat. I see you guys. You guys are getting after it in the chat. So this has been a great episode. Appreciate you guys as always. We're going to be on BuckeyeScoop.com all night. It has been super active today. So again, we appreciate you guys. Subscribe, join into the fray because it is a fantastic community. And it's a blast to be a part of. So if you guys are not members of BuckeyeScoop.com, consider it. I promise you, if you try it out, you'll love it. So we appreciate you guys. So hope you guys have a great rest of your day. We, as always, appreciate you guys. If you guys could leave us a like on the way out, that would be huge. Click subscribe. Also click that alert bell if you enjoy these live shows, and you'll get a little alert on your phone that says we are live. So as always, we appreciate you guys so much. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation, and thank you, Scoop family. I will see you on BuckeyeScoop.com. Have a great rest of your day, and go Bucks.